big news for me this week was Ezra Klein and Nate Silver both coming out with op-eds saying that Biden should probably bow out of the race and not be the Democratic nominee for president. The Ezra Klein took us through it and was basically like, let's have an open convention in August. It's a very long way away, and sort of it's way too close to the actual election date, in my opinion. Not way too close, but feels close. What was your reaction to both of those arguments being made? And I want to give my critique in a second and get your thoughts also, Brooke. But Dave, what do you think about those op-eds?
Well, with Ezra's, what was most interesting in the op-ed, there's a podcast too, but the op-ed is he talks about how he has this nightmare where Biden loses and all these Democrats who secretly were saying he's out of it and he can't win release memoirs where they admit this. That sounds like the voice. I know Ezra pretty well. That sounds like the voice of experience. He talks to Democratic staffers, and some of them do that. I mean, you can get blind quotes from Democrats saying Biden has lost a step, et cetera, et cetera. Not that many, not in the Biden White House, but you can meet other Democratic staffers who think this, and I can imagine them ratting him out at some point. With Silver just looks at Ed Ingermentum, other people who are election analysts, people who don't have like favorites. They just look at it and say, it makes no sense when you're potentially running against an unpopular Republican nominee to run somebody with vulnerabilities. Just like take the guy with the vulnerabilities out and swap in somebody else. Because of his credibility of mostly being right about elections, that's I think he had less of an inside track on that, but that's why that mattered. And all that you could get to the weeds of how could you swap Biden out. Those guys both who do not want Trump to return, both I think thought this is a moment for me to put my voice in, and if I'm part of a chorus of people saying this, does the White House or Biden reconsider? I absolutely don't think Biden does. I mean, Biden, if there's one thing about Biden's personality, he really resents being told that he can't win. Even though he's lost key elections, his persona is built around I've been underestimated especially by like snobby pundits, frankly, my whole life. So I'm not. You can't listen to them. I don't think that they could have written. They could have used more creative, like daring him to run in order to convince him not to. I don't think anything would have worked, but that's what they were doing. And in Ezra's case, I think there are Democrats who are worried about this and don't know how to get the word out. Like, how do we credibly tell people we're kind of worried about this without just being the fifth quote in some article that says one Democrat says he's worried? Like, how do we get everyone else talking about our panic?
Yeah, that's I don't know who they're talking to either, because it's like if you're inside the machine, maybe you have, and then he won't listen to anyone outside of it. I don't know. It's like, I think we have to get to Jill. That's my thing. Like Jill, we have to get to Commander. We have to get to somebody, like to convince him. Like, what is it, boy? Like, rawr, 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 rawr. Don't run again, like that kind of thing. But one thing that I thought was interesting is neither Ezra nor Nate mentioned Gaza. And I feel like that's fine.
Great point.
So that's maybe strategically or sort of politically, they felt like they didn't want to touch it. But what's changed between now and when David Axelrod said the same thing back in what it was, September or something? Yeah. It's been the massive shedding of young voters of color, people who are really upset by the Democrats and specifically Biden's position on Gaza. And it's like such an elephant in the room, and neither of them even say it. One thing I wanted to ask about that is, and I want to pivot to Michigan specifically, because the primary is on February 27th, and ask you, Dave, also, I mean, both of you guys, specifically about this strategy that Rashida Tlaib is spearheading, Representative Tlaib, about writing in uncommitted and not voting for Joe Biden. So take a look.
It is also important to create a voting bloc, something that is a bullhorn to say enough is enough. We don't want a country that supports wars and bombs and destruction. We want to support life. We want to stand up for every single life killed in Gaza. I want you to think of El Shama. I want you to think of Rima. I want you to think of Sidra. I want you to think of all of the amazing young children and the people, again, lives were lost in Gaza. This is the way you can raise our voices. Don't make us even more invisible. Right now, we feel completely neglected neglected, and just unseen by our government. If you want us to be louder, then come here and vote uncommitted.
So this is this new effort that a lot of organizers are spearheading. I think Linda Sarsour has been working on this too. But it's called the Listen to Michigan campaign, and also supported by 30 Michigan officials. They're planning to write uncommitted on their ballots. Dave, will this maybe break through to Joe Biden? Is it the voters who have to do it?
Yeah, this has a better chance of breaking through than anything else because it's an option on the ballot. Some states have this. Like Nevada, I think now famously has none of these candidates. Nikki Haley lost to it, and
right.
Michigan has this option for uncommitted. And so Layla Elabed, who's the campaign manager, who was running this, she's actually Tlaib's sister, and then Tlaib got on board and is now, I think, the face of the campaign. She pointed out in 2008, Democrats kind of screwed up their primary calendar, and Obama didn't put his name on the ballot. So in the primary, there was an understanding. All right, vote uncommitted, and it'll be Obama eventually, and it was. That's how they assigned the delegates. So they said, yeah, there's precedent for getting a ton of votes for uncommitted. In 2020, it was still Bernie and Biden and then other names on the ballot. It got 1.2% uncommitted, but the baseline for uncommitted is pretty low, and so 10% of the vote being against Biden, what Alabed and everyone else is saying is, look, that would say here's a hard number of votes who are Democrats who came out and said we are so against what the administration is doing with Netanyahu in Gaza that we exist, and this is a block of votes that could be used for Cornell West. This could be a block of votes that stays home. They just want to have that hard number very clearly with time to organize. They're doing stuff every day. I mean, they're organizing Dearborn, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti. They're organizing real events at a time when there's not. I mean, the Biden campaign's doing the bare minimum because he's the incumbent president, so they have some cabinet secretaries going and whatever. But the denominator is probably going to be pretty small. If whatever votes they get, you will then for the rest of the year, people like me can say, but in Michigan, X thousand people voted for uncommitted over Biden, a potential, which means what? And then these committee leaders too have been very vocal in Michigan. One of the ironies is that Michigan got up earlier in the primary calendar because of Joe Biden and the DNC wanting a big Midwestern state that's not Iowa to get up in the primary calendar, and they happened to choose the one with a big Arab American population. So a factor for the last 4 months is that, yes, people like Alyssa Slock and Debbie Dingell, not just Rashida Tlaib, a lot of Democrats say, hey, we are in our communities and this is unpopular.
Yeah.
You might not have been paying attention, but because we have this primary coming up, because November's competitive, a lot of reporters have gone. I mean, I've done interviews. I know NBC, CBS, reporters have gone out to Dearborn again and again to profile people. So it really has already given not just a voice to that opposition, but made it more sophisticated so that reporters know who to talk to. And it's not just generically, oh, there's a protest vote, maybe they'll vote for Cornell West. He was also campaigned there. Yeah, I'd say it's already pretty successful, and then we'll see in a week what that total is.
Yeah, I mean, and that's thanks to an organized community, and also a concentrated community of Arab American voters who are pretty active in general politics. You could, I don't know, you could say the same thing about any organized, close-knit community around the country that you need to win over in order to win. I mean, the discrepancy in that vote can be used to say, look, if this translates to the general, we're fucked. So that'll be something to watch. That'll be very, very interesting and exciting. Brooke, did you want to just weigh in on that?
Just saying Michigan is just never a state to sleep on. There's just a lot of interesting politics happening. Like I told you, the secret society of closeted Democrat women versus our Arab American community. We've got a super disenfranchised areas in Flint and Detroit and the surrounding areas. And then, but we also have a militia. We have,
come to Michigan. We've got it all.
Leave confused.
But I do think that that's an interesting. Those are two groups you just mentioned. Before I let you go, Dave, it feels to me like the Biden administration is well, we don't need the Arabs. We don't want the Arab American voters. we want those sleeper cell democratic
Yeah.
women.
Mhm.
We want the women who are worried about reproductive rights rollbacks. I mean, too late, but yes. And we're just going to get them. We're going to get suburban women on board, and that will make up the difference. So we're going to, of course, continue to hammer on reproductive rights. But recently, I think it might have even been Political. I forgot what article, but basically it was like even the reproductive rights hammering is really difficult among some of these organizations where the memberships and the staffers are super on board with ending this bloodshed in Gaza. And they're like, man, it's really stifling our ability to get out the vote on this issue because folks are, including us, we're so focused on what's going on.
Well, because if you have a brain, like how can you care and scream about reproductive rights, but then like turn your back on what's happening to women in Gaza? And
Yep.
so it's a lot of the youth in Michigan too. Like they're 100% connecting the dots.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do